We're in West Bay this morning. It is a beautifully calm, chilly, and it will be bright December morning. As soon as the sun comes out from behind that cloud, it's going to be a beautiful day. It's quite cold. We're going to go for a walk westward from West Bay today towards Eype, and then walk back along the cliff top. That's the Christmas tree in West Bay, made of lobster pots and buoys and fenders. It's cold and it's early and I'm hungry. I think a little bit of fortification might be in order. We're here on the falling tide, so you can see some of these boats in the harbour here are already stranded on the harbour floor, on the mud. So the boats that haven't gone out probably aren't going out. We're here on the falling tide because we have to walk in front of the cliffs. I'll explain that bit in a moment. The West Bay cliff there looming above that pink house. This is the famous cliff that appears in the TV series Broadchurch and was in the intro of The Fall and Rise of Reginald Perrin, which was filmed here. So out there we can see rain falling from that cloud that's hiding the sun at the moment. We're not going to go east that way today. We've done that in a previous video. I'll link in the description. We're going to go west towards Eype. But first, here. This is called Windy Corner, where we're standing at the moment. And Windy Corner Cafe does a good breakfast. Importantly, dog's welcome.
Would you like a couple of bits of sausage for your dinner?
I'm sure she won't say no.
Just right. We're just doing this so that they...
Appreciate that, thank you. A couple of little bits of sausage for Eva. She gets breakfast before we get our breakfast. Okay, well, substantially victualled, we are going to sally forth along the beach here. So we've got a bit of promenade to go along first, and then we've got to get down onto the foreshore if we can, and walk round that headland there to Eype. Not very common to see me wearing gloves, in fact mittens. So these are boiled wool mitts. They make them twice the size, they knit them twice the size they need to be, and then boil wash them, and the wool shrinks and they end up being really, really warm because they're so dense. Why mittens and not gloves? Well, if you think about it, 4 people in a bed together are going to be warmer than 4 people individually in sleeping bags. So there is a beach here because there are these rocky breakwaters, that are the artificial breakwaters that have been added to stop the longshore drift from just washing all of the beach away. We'll get to the end of this in a minute, and yeah, we get to the end of the promenade, and I don't think you're actually meant to walk any further than the end of the promenade, I think, but it's not illegal to do that, it's just not recommended, I think. So anyway, we're going to walk in front of these cliffs, which is why we've picked low tide to come here, because, you know, otherwise you can end up getting trapped between the waves and the cliffs, and that's not a good situation. Despite there being not very much breeze, there's a fair bit of surf. So these are waves that have probably come quite a long way from out at sea. Quite a fresh rock fall there from that cliff. That rock is not there as a feature. That's just fallen, tumbled down off of that cliff up there. This is... Why is this section closed? Here we go. The cliffs to your right are very unstable. Rockfalls are frequent. The cliff is also slumping, meaning it could collapse at any time. Please don't put your life at risk by walking beyond the barriers. Enjoy the view from here instead. Well, I'm not generally a disobedient type, but I am going to disobey because it's low tide. We've got enough space once we get to the end of this promenade. We've got enough space to get down away from the cliffs to walk along the beach. So I definitely don't recommend what we're doing here now. This is perhaps the most irresponsible and dangerous thing you'll ever see me do on one of these videos. But yeah, even a chunk like that, if it hits you on the head, would be a bad day. And you can see that that chunk of wall there has just been broken off by something, and that something is rocks falling. So we can get to the end here, and hopefully there's a way down. Yeah, we're just going to have to go down here, spend as little time as possible in front of the cliff, and then get down over those rocks. camera off because I need two hands for this. Okay, I am not a fan of don't do what I just did, but don't do what I just did. That was pretty stupid, really. So anyway, we're on the beach now, heading towards Eype. This is, well, Eype's just in the middle of this bit here. But yeah, that particular bit of cliff there is very soft and it's just slumping, and hanging around in front of that cliff for any amount of time is just not a great idea. So here we go, this is Eype Beach. There is a piece of lime bay agate, slightly translucent. Eva! Oh, you already got one? So we will have a little look for fossils along this bit of shore here. It's not the best beach on the Jurassic Coast for fossils, but we'll see what we might be able to find. We might find something. But what a gorgeous day. And yeah, you can see why, well, the promenade just stops, and that's as far as you're meant to go. It's a shame. I suppose eventually that big bit of cliff there will slump down and get washed away, and perhaps they'll reopen it when there's not so much there left to fall. Hello. Frequently asked question, why do you throw rocks for Eva? Isn't that bad for her teeth? Well, maybe it is. It's not our idea. She invented this game, and there really isn't any way to stop it. But also, she's incredibly gentle in the way that she picks up these rocks. She's ever so careful, and she's 10.5 years old now, and she's been doing this all her life and not suffered any tooth damage. Wouldn't it be better if we threw a ball for her? Well, maybe, but look at this beach. It slopes continually down into the sea. If I throw a ball here, it just rolls down into the sea. Eva will not go in the sea to retrieve it, and so we just lose a ball every time we attempt that. What? Most of the game is not about picking the rock up anyway, it's about digging a hole underneath the rock. I think you lost it. It's right there. One of the benefits of breaking the rules, which by the way you should just never do, is we've got the entire beach to ourselves. So you can get down to Eype Beach, down up over there. There's that house there is in the tail end of Eype village. And we've been here before in a previous video, linked to that in the description and in this card. But yeah, we've got the whole of this beach to ourselves today. I haven't seen anything fossily yet. Just going to stand here a moment and appreciate the percussive sound of the waves moving all these pebbles around. Okay. So yeah, the cliffs here are this kind of grey clay mud. There's a band of limestone up there in the cliff, and then sandy stuff above it. And they do come down. Usually cliff falls will be when the weather is stormy or something like that, when there's additional energy being added into the system. That's when a cliff will finally fall, but it could happen at any moment. And here's the remains of an old cliff fall here. So at some point all of this stuff here that's on the beach has come down from up there. Well, I mean, that's true of all of the beach, to be honest. The whole of this beach is derived from erosion of the cliffs. So these are the remains of trees which were once up on top of the cliff up there. So yeah, if you want to visit this beach and not be reckless and unsafe like you saw me do earlier, you can just head to Eype, and there's a car park there, and it's just up there, so you can get to this beach from the other end. We're going to be going up there and then walking back along the coastal path that's on top of the cliffs. Got here possibly a piece of carnelian. It might just be a piece of that Lime Bay agate that's got some superficial iron staining on the surface though. So we might find if we were to cut that in half or tumble it, that it wouldn't be this butterscotch colour all the way through. I'm not going to take any rocks home today. Right, Eva, do you want this one? Carnelian being a species of chalcedony, which has got, you know, flint and agate and chert. They're all chalcedony minerals, and most of the pebbles on this beach are of that composition. So there are chunks of limestone and stuff, but a lot of them are the quartz. Oh, you brought it back. So again, these big chunks of sedimentary stuff here, there's a fossil of some sort. Not really sure what that is. It does look in shape like a vertebra, but it probably isn't, because it's not. It's probably a piece of a shell. But you can see these would originally have been jagged chunks of rock that fell off the cliff, and they've been worn smooth by being beaten by the waves and all of these sediments. That's why all of the rocks here are round. The waves are relentless. There's an interesting thing. That looks like a piece of iron ore. You can see little crystals in there. I think there's a bit of pyrite there. I think there's a bit of iron ore as well. There's some reddish material there. We do get bands of iron ore in these cliffs and nodules. What's curious here is there's an enormous hole in the cliff here. It goes back quite a long way, and yet some of the rocks here are really quite fresh and jagged on the edges. So this is quite a recent fall here, but it's such a long way from the cliff face. And I think what's happened here, well, there's been a bit of a slump, and this bit here has probably slid down and slid forward, but also anything that falls down there, there's almost like a parabolic curve off that cliff. So a chunk of rock that falls down there falls and then gets accelerated out towards us this way, so there's potential for things to roll quite a distance. Well, despite that chilly start, it's now got really rather warm, and I'm wishing I hadn't put on such a thick coat. You right, little dog? So we haven't seen anything resembling a fossil apart from that one specimen still embedded in the host rock. I think probably anything softer than quartz, anything softer than flint, is just going to get smashed to pieces on this beach pretty quickly, because the surf here is quite relentless and there's a lot of hard rocks here being tumbled around to smooth everything off. And as I say, that is why all of these rocks are round. Here's a particularly nice piece of translucent lime bay agate, very, very smooth and tumbled. It has this kind of waxy, it's called waxy chalcedony. It's not oily or anything, but it just has a feeling. The surface is like that of a candle. It feels like that. It's a stone, Eva. Would you like it? So in a moment we're going to head up there. There's a little gap there, a little chine, where we go up and then up to the car park, up the road. The coast path goes back along the top of the cliffs all the way back down to West Bay. That first little bit of sea glass there, that can come home with me. Okay, so this is Eype, which is, you know, this is the village of Eype. It's just up here. So we have to go up here. There's a little stream which will disappear into the pebbles. We'll find a bin to put that in. So we've got to go up here and find, oh, actually I think we go down there and follow and over that bridge and the coast path. So I'm just going to go and find a bin to put that in and back in a moment. These concrete blocks are dragon's teeth, tank traps from World War II. So these were defensive structures. They're put here with the notion of stopping landing craft bearing tanks, deploying them onto this beach and invading up this valley. Little babbling brook here. I don't know what this one's called, maybe the River Eype. And it comes down here over the rocks and just disappears into the gravel, and so it reaches the sea underground. These plants here are tree mallow. We'll have a look at those in just a moment. Oh, here we go, that's what I was looking for. So yeah, tree mallow, and they have beautifully felty leaves. The leaves are just like the softest velvet. So, actually from our vantage point up here, we can see that's the path we need to follow. So we need to go up that bank there and back across the cliff top. Because we're on top of a cliff, Eva will be on the lead. So cross over this little bridge here. Oh, and there are some steps up as well, so we don't have to scramble up a bank. So that's the coast path up there. We'll just have a little diversion off over here because there's a pillbox. So again, this is a World War II defensive structure. Commonly these would be just cast in concrete, but this one's brick. Don't know if we can actually get inside, or if we can, or indeed if we can, whether we want to. There we go. full of graffiti and possibly human waste, so we won't go in there. But yeah, so that's a defensive structure overlooking this potential invasion point here. So why are there always cliffs at the beach? Well, the sea will erode the land inwards gradually, and when it hits a hill, there's more to erode. So there's just more material here for the erosion process to remove, and the sea can only work on the bottom part of it. So when it hits a cliff, it's eroding away compressed, compacted rocks, and the cliff falls, and then all of that has to get washed away, and then the next bit happens. So the erosion process will probably slow down when it hits a cliff, and so you get cliffs as headlands. But eventually these cliffs one day will be worn away to nothing, and the sea will make its way inland, and it will encounter another hill, and then there'll be another cliff. So here we've got a cliff up here, and then there's a little valley here, one of these dry valleys we get in Dorset. These are periglacial features, so this has been eroded by runoff from meltwater during the end of the Ice Age, eroding the chalk and limestone, but with no river running down it. So there's no river in the bottom of this little valley here, it's just a dry valley. And any rain that falls here doesn't form a river because it soaks straight into the ground, into the chalk, or in this case limestone or sandstone. So yeah, one day the sea will erode away these cliffs we're about to walk on. It will encounter a piece of land with slightly less resistance here, and then over the course of centuries, millennia, it will gallop inland to this other hill here, and there'll be a cliff there. So a steady but quite relentless climb up this hill from Eype. We can see back down there, down to the beach, the holiday park, the village of Eype beyond. And over there in the distance, Charmouth and Lyme Regis, and then further round, I don't know, what is that, Sidmouth or something? Anyway, we've still got a little bit more up to do before we can go down. So, continuing on this coast path. We're right up the top now. In fact, we're behind that bit where I said the cliffs had cut inland. And from here, you can see this chunk of cliff here is eventually going to detach and rotate down onto the beach. That will happen sometime in the next couple of years, but probably not decades. And you can see the line of the old cliff path, the old coastal path, right on the edge of the cliff there. It wasn't always on the edge of the cliff. The cliffs have moved, not the path. Glamping huts. And the town of Bridport. That plume of what looks like smoke there is actually steam, and that's from Palmer's Brewery. And then over there we can see Colmer's Hill. That's been the subject of another video, so I'll link to that one too. Okay, perhaps here you can get a better view of what I was talking about. So this is the bit of cliff that we were looking at from down on the beach, and this bit here, there's been a slump here, so that piece of headland there is now detached, and so all it will take is a little bit of erosion on the front side to weaken it, and then that will just slump down or rotate down onto the shore, probably in quite spectacular fashion. So this coast path we're walking on here is probably only about 5 to 10 meters away from the cliff edge, and sooner or later it will be impossible to walk it safely. So at some point there'll probably be some negotiation with the landowners, and the cliff path, the coast path, will be moved a little bit inland, perhaps to the other side of this hedge, and that process carries on and on for as long as coastal erosion takes place, which is, you know, it's a constant process. So over the rise, nearly all downhill now, and there's West Bay ahead of us. The iconic cliffs, and I think I can even see the cafe where we had breakfast. Breakfast was absolutely superb, by the way. So over there in the distance, the Isle of Portland. So the other day we were the other side of that. We were over in Lulworth Cove, and we were looking at the Isle of Portland from the other side. So that's the Isle of Portland just there. Great big chunk of limestone that slopes down gradually towards Portland Bill. Yep, down we go to West Bay. This path has just got the ever so slight coating of sticky mud, which is actually now slippery mud, so this is a bit treacherous. That'll be fun. Won't be surprised if I end up on my backside coming down here. Oh, at least we've got some steps. So that's pretty much the end of our walk today. As usual, I'll put the route on screen. I don't recommend this as a circular walk because of that stupid and potentially hazardous thing we did where we went off the end of the promenade where you're not meant to go, or you're strongly advised not to go. So can't recommend it as a circular walk, but there's some lovely views if you take the coast path, or if you start at Eype and walk along Eype beach, it's a lovely beach. So thanks for joining us on this trip from West Bay to Eype and back this morning. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.